Welcome to First Things First. It is Friday. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is not Nick Wright, nor is that Special Joint Forces. Today, we are joined by NBA champ Antoine Walker and WNBA champ Swin Cash. To get us started, it takes a village.
Would your girl Beyonce say upgrade me? Okay, this is what I did, okay?
We got a big show, a dose of basketball, a dose of football. The Cowboys shoring up their defensive line. Huge injury to the front runner for MVP in the NBA, but we kick things off with the Philadelphia 76ers. Big win for them at home last night over the Nets, thanks in very large part to a big night out of Joel Embiid. 39 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals in only 28 minutes of play. Boy, imagine if he played 29. Sixers will take the win over a team they could very well face in the playoffs. After the game, Joel Embiid said, "We're trying to win a championship." See, we talk about Joel Embiid a lot, but coming down this stretch here, what's the most impressive part of Embiid's game?
Well, I think it's very impressive because he was injured at the All-Star break, the wear and tear. They gave him a break. He missed 8 games there. In those games, they were 4-4. So I think in coming back for the stretch drive, and Philadelphia's done a great job. They got a lot of criticism as far as the guys who they drafted being injured, but how they nursed him back, because I believe that he's beyond having that injury bug being on him. But there are certain times, regardless of what your resume is, that you need to be able to give a guy a break. And for a young player like himself to be like, no, I'm not going to force myself to be out there, the organization to be on top of that, and to give him the type of rest that he could finish with the type of force that you need, a big 5, they are a rarity. For a big man to be able to operate not only inside the paint, but be able to bring you out to the three-point line, I believe he's a breath of fresh air, not only on the court, but off the court. I believe he's going to be the face of the NBA. Because of his personality, because of his overall game, and the surrounding pieces that they've put around him, it seems like the Jimmy Butler, the trade is working. Tobias Harris, it's working. So those things collectively, I could say after that 8-game break, how he is going to finish the regular season has been very impressive to me.
Yeah, and Antoine, you know this as much as anybody. In this new NBA, we hear load management. Everybody has load management, whether it's Embiid, whether you're going up to Toronto and what they've been doing up there with Kawhi. But for Embiid, I think they've done it right, Cris. I think they have taken their time. They made sure that he gives them maximum effort, but lower minutes. And when he comes out and plays, you get dominating for performance like he did tonight. But keep this in mind, guys. His performance, like Embiid's 25. Like what we're seeing right now, the numbers he's putting up, it's the new era of the NBA where the 5s can step out. They can shoot the 3. They can be down low. But I think he's right. They're going for a championship this year. I remember seeing Elton Brand before the trades happened and just saying, you know, what's going on with the team? What are you guys thinking about? And I knew something was going to happen, but getting Tobias Harris, I think, is that extra piece that can put them in position to get through this Eastern Conference.
I think when you look at last night, is the way they have to play. I think that's more important. I know Joel Embiid played terrific, but the Sixers to win the championship, and I love the fact that he talked about we're trying to win a championship, but they got to play inside the out. And you don't see that a lot with a lot of NBA teams. You got to feature him. He's got to be the guy getting 20, 25 shots a night. Then everybody else kind of piece it together. You got a great point guard, I think, in Ben Simmons, but then Jimmy Butler, I think, has finally fit his role. Let me defend. Let me be the guy that takes the shots late in the end of the game. We all know what J.J. Redick can do from the three-point line. And then Tobias Harris gives us their stability. But the one thing about the Sixers, I would wish they come out and put one of those guys in starting lineup, take them out the lineup early, so you can get that bench better. You have to get that bench a lot better come playoff time. But they got all the ingredients and pieces. But if they play the way they played last night, everybody getting double-digit shots, but Embiid being the feature, you know, no question how far this team can go, because they got the second-best starting 5 in the league behind Golden State.
Yeah, nice.
But do you think they rely on Joel Embiid almost to their detriment? I mean, do you think that this team lives and dies by the way Joel Embiid plays every night? And will that hold them back come the playoffs?
Well, I think as an organization, when you have a player like him, you need to establish something. And the foundation of their basketball should be Joel Embiid. And it's just not because he's a 7-footer. It's because of his skill set. I believe he also is a very effective leader. Man, he's very personable. You see him always talking on the court to the other players. So I don't think you can rely on a guy who has a complete game. He's got an intermediate game. He can pull up. You talked about earlier about being able to come out to the three-point line, and we know that he has a devastating inside game. So I don't think, and if you look at the skill set of the other guys around him, what they do. Jimmy Butler, like, he is better. First 3 quarters, being a defender, being a slasher, and then at the end of the game, after you fed Joel Embiid, you've gotten all these fouls on him, on the opposition, then you allow Jimmy Butler to be able to close them out. So, no, Jenna, I believe that everything starts and ends with Joel Embiid, and I believe that was part of their struggle earlier, trying to find identity, what we're going to do. Let's pump it into the paint, allow the big man to go to work. That's the way the NBA used to be. Man, we're going to give it to the big man, let him work, and then everyone else get theirs off of that.
Well, he's a star player, so you have to go through him first, and I think that's rightfully so. He had 6 assists last night. 4 of those assists were to Ben Simmons because they have guys that are used to playing without the ball. Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, they don't need the ball in their hand consistently to be able to produce. And so Embiid is a really good passer to be a big man, and that's what's happening. Even at Golden State, you see Boogie Cousins, a great guy with big hands. Draymond Green, another big that has great hands. That's where the NBA is right now, and Embiid has all the tools that you have to go through him, and then you feed the other guys off that.
And they're good enough, too, just to add to that, is that we know they're probably not going to finish with the 1st or 2nd seed. But being at the 3rd seed, it's a good spot for them. They got a good home crowd, have some home court advantage. They're going to play great in Philly. But you got to add, only thing I worry about them is Brent Brown making the proper adjustments that's needed throughout the playoffs. We saw some mistakes last year in the playoffs.
Yes.
Making the right adjustments to make sure that they don't beat themselves, because they're talented enough to go as far as they want to go in the Eastern Conference.
So that's an interesting point. What I was going to ask you, Swin, if they don't make it to the end of the Eastern Conference, what will be the reason why? I mean, what will you point to and say, well, that's where their demise was with this team? That Antoine, you think is the best team in the East?
I think Antoine made a good point. I think right now, the organization, the ownership has went all in on this team. This team will not be the same team next year. I would be
this
surprised
starting 5.
if this starting 5 is the same starting 5 next year. They're going to have to sign some guys. I don't know if Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris will both be there. But I will say this. If they beat themselves and then also the bench, I like Boban to be on their bench. I think he's going to add some size on the inside, and that trade with Tobias Harris is going to be good for them. But then you're going to need other guys. You're going to need Scott to come out. You're going to need also Johnson. Those guys to not only defend, but to make open shots. Because if I'm scheming in a 7-game series, I'm going to take some things away. Who are the other guys that are going to step up, be role players to have those moments?
Well, we talk about, and you bring this up all the time, Ben Simmons has to be one of those those guys. But he talks about his limitations all the time shooting. How much are they going to need a little bit more from Ben Simmons in that regard?
Well, I think he has to play smart. He has some deficiencies shooting the basketball, so they know that they're going to have to put him in position where he can be effective. That may be him posting up a little bit more, playing off his skill set, which is a guy that can slash, cut to the basket, finish around the basket. But I'm not worried about Ben. I think last year taught him a lot. Understanding that they're going to sag. He's going to be the weak link on the offensive end. But they also can go small, too, and play another guy. You know, obviously, Ben Simmons is your all-star, but they have some other pieces now. She talked about the bench. You can bring in a T.J. McConnell, a guy who can make some shots, who can stretch the defense a little bit. So they have all the ingredients there to be a great team. It's going to be up to them. They're going to beat themselves. And just to add to that, I think it is championship or bust, or this roster changes immediately in the offseason.
No, Jenna, you make a great point. If you're talking about Philadelphia, why might they not get there? Why aren't they Eastern Conference champions? There's a couple of things. Ben Simmons, out of 505 shots this season, only 13 outside the painted area that he's been able to make. So in the playoffs, we saw last year, people sagging off of him. I believe it's very important, too, for Brett Brown to be able to get them in set, especially early in the game. Don't try to run a half-court offense. Get him going with pace, because it's easier before the defense sets up that he can get a better look than in a half-court defense. And on the defensive side of things, we know Philadelphia is a suffocating defense. But how can they hide J.J. Redick? Because teams try to find him out, try to find that matchup in there. We know he's a knockdown shooter, but a deficiency on the defensive side. So Ben Simmons shooting the basketball, shooting it from any type of distance, or how's he going to generate offense before he gets impatient? And J.J. Redick trying to hide him on the defensive side.
Just so I'm clear, we have to hide J.J. Redick on defense and hide Ben Simmons on offense. My kids would be amazing at putting this 76ers. If this is about hide and seek, call my kids. They'll put this.
Yeah, they might be professional, but they got deficiencies.
Swin and Cash, we'll see you guys. Swin and Cash. Swin and Antoine. This is my problem when I give people nicknames. We'll see you guys a little bit later on. Take a break. Coming up, hey, why does Antonio Brown have the rest of the league nervous? That's next on FS1, and you can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. Back here with Eric Mangini and Brian Westbrook. We'll get to them and Antonio Brown in a second, but first, Sixers Nets. Joel Embiid throwing the lob up to Ben Simmons for the one-handed slam.
Oh, it's going to be a problem. He's right in his range, though. He's right in a restricted area.
That's the only place he can shoot.
He likes to shoot from.
Kings and Pelicans. De'Aaron Fox drops a dime to Willie Cauley-Stein before throwing it down on Jahlil Okafor.
I see you, Willie Cauley-Stein, making a guest appearance. Man, I ain't seen you since Kentucky.
Watch your head.
Oh!
There it is.
All right, moving
Banged on
on.
him.
Little nuggets and rockets from last night. Jamal Murray, watch this, drives, loses the dribble, makes the one-handed acrobatic shot.
Now, see, that's what
That was
happened.
nice.
You make fun of a Kentucky player, the next one, another Kentucky player makes a
planned it that
ridiculous
way.
shot.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I got another Kentucky player on the show today. It's Big Blue Nation. They play tonight.
Whole bunch of them.
Those are the only type of shots I can make.
NCAA
unconditional.
Sweet 16, Texas Tech beating up on Michigan, helped in part by Tariq Owens skying for a twisted alley-oop, see.
Yeah, not the most offensive game you would ever want to see.
Out of Michigan, 44 points last night for them.
Michigan had a great season. Didn't play that way last night. Got to give Tech a lot of credit. Some good athletes played some suffocating defense.
All right, let's move on to a little football. Antonio Brown, the former Steeler, orchestrated quite an exit out of Pittsburgh last week. Not only did he have 3 years left on his deal when he was traded to Oakland, he also got himself a new contract. According to reports, some executives around the league are worried about the precedent this sets. Hey, if he could do it, couldn't others? See, I'll start with you. Are NFL executives right to be concerned about this move?
Well, I think NFL executives are always looking to see what's going to be the next trend. And with the salary cap, right now, $188.2 million. And if I'm sitting there as a veteran player, if I'm one of the best at my position, I don't have guaranteed money. The landscape of pro football has changed. Because I know the organization, if you have a bad year and you don't have guaranteed money, there's a possibility they can come to you before the season, being like, after free agency, you know, I don't think that you're worth being one of the top 5 at your position. We want you to take a salary reduction. They have the right to do that. So what is the player's recourse in that? They don't have anything. Now, I wouldn't be worried about players having the resume that Antonio has. The stretch that he's been on the last 6 to 8 years, that's going to be hard to duplicate. So you're always at this, who's willing to take a chance? So there's not enough players that have a strong enough resume, and there's not enough players that have the guts and the agent of Drew Rosenhaus, because it takes some guts to be able to walk out on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, it takes some guts. And most guys, they aren't willing to take those types of chances. So, yes, I think they should be aware of things like that, because with the salary cap, if you decide I want to exit this team, you only need one team to fall in love with you. And we know in the NFL, regardless of what your resume is, you might have a police record, you might have a checkered past. One team will take that chance on you. So if I'm a general manager and I don't have guaranteed money on some of my star players or my upper echelon players, I would be concerned that they might try to force themselves out, Coach.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. It only really applies to the best players. You have to be Antonio Brown. You have to be in a situation where you can say, I'm one of the best at my position, top 2 or 3 at my position. So it doesn't apply to everyone. I wouldn't be as concerned for that. If I'm a GM of a football team, I would be more concerned with guys saying, you signed a 5-year contract, it's year 2 or 3, and now I want more money. That's what I would be concerned with if I'm a GM, because
wouldn't only the upper echelon guys warrant that, or be able to walk into a GM's office and ask for that?
Well, you don't have to be the best at your position to do that, but you have to be valuable to the team. If you're valuable to the team and you're still not the best at your position, you can still walk into that GM's office and say, hey, without me, this is what this team is. With me, I can produce. This team can be great. Without him, Antonio Brown, in this case, they couldn't win.
And typically, guys forget about their signing bonus. So they get the signing bonus. That's supposed to be prorated. They're supposed to look at that as part of the...
What is that, Coach?
Once they get paid,
You're right.
that money, it's like it never existed. It's all about new money. And guys think, I should be getting new money that's consistent with the market that's shifted since I signed my deal. And it's not realistic. It's not how it works. Now, with Antonio Brown's situation, I was really surprised that Pittsburgh made the move that they did, because they took a hard line with Le'Veon Bell, and organizationally they typically take a very hard line, and to some degree you have to, because if you allow that to happen, then someone else is going to try it, and until you take that stand and say it's not going to happen here, then you're always at risk for people pushing like that.
What was the hard line? Was it, hey, guess what? We'll fine you every time you want to sit out. Just stay. We're not going to. Would the hard line have been just keeping Antonio Brown there?
The hard line was, if I don't get the type of deal that is a blockbuster deal, this is your home. You don't have another option. Unless you want to retire from football. I saw his house on there on Instagram Live. I saw those houses. He said it's paid for, but you need more money to stay functionally being able to do the things he wants to do. So he wouldn't have had a recourse. Him and his agent would have had to make a decision in late August. That's what it comes down to. Are we going to play or are we going to sit out? And you're right. If the Pittsburgh Steelers had done that, what would they have been able to, what would the Brown and his agent Drew Rosenhaus been able to do? They wouldn't have anything to do but either sit out, end his career, or come back and play for the Pittsburgh Steelers under the current deal.
And I got the sense that, or the feeling I have is that they want to take a fresh start. They want to move on from all of this drama, and they were willing to sacrifice and not.
Because they didn't get the blockbuster deal from Oakland.
They didn't get anything near what his value is. But they're committing to Ben Roethlisberger. They know that he can continue to lead them, and their thought process is, let's move on from this issue and go forward.
If you're the Steelers, you also know we've had a lot of success at drafting wide receivers, finding wide receivers, and we have Juju right there waiting in the wings. So if there was a situation where the team is better without Antonio Brown, not on the field but in the locker room, and we can bring this thing together behind Juju being our lead receiver, then we'll take that chance. I think that's what Pittsburgh had to think about.
Steelers are basically wide receiver and running back light. Like they had James Conner instead of Bell. They have Juju. But what about this idea, Coach, and this is a big thing for you, of a guy, you look at a team like the Steelers, and they had a guy who was disgruntled and wanted out, and he got out. Doesn't that set a bad precedent for your new team and the new sort of environment that you're creating there?
Yeah, it does. But you've got to look at the whole. You got to weigh the two against each other. Keeping them, the disruption that's going to create versus the precedent. And there is a commitment to Ben. And Ben is a force multiplier. And Ben has won on a consistent basis. And Ben has shown that he can take those 6th-round wide receivers or guys that have a developing skill set and make them a lot better. So at the end of the day, their thought process to me was, let's make the quarterback happy. He'll be able to push us forward, and we'll cut our losses on Brown.
From my perspective, I look at the next 6 months to be very critical for Mike Tomlin and what he's doing there in Pittsburgh, because he's got to reestablish the culture there in that locker room. They've made an outward saying Ben is going to be our leader. Coach Tomlin has supported him. But in doing this and trying to rebuild this faith with the team, if I was Coach Tomlin, the first guy who made a mistake, it wouldn't have to be a big one. I'm going to make an example of him. A guy gets arrested or something, I'm going to cut him, guy. I'm going to cut a guy they don't think him so I can reestablish who's in control of that organization. I believe it's very important what they've been through with L. Bell last couple years with that franchise tag, AB shooting himself out, not showing up the last week of the season. The next guy who would do something, if I'm Tomlin, I believe that would send the type of message of being like, wow, this is the way the Pittsburgh used to deal with their
But what if that next guy is Ben Roethlisberger? What if it's him calling someone out on the radio? What if it's, do you do the same thing with him? Because he's now, you got rid of the other two guys. You have Roethlisberger
Well, this is the thing. I can't make it. I've already told the story with Ben Roethlisberger. We're riding him to the end of this, Coach. That's why we're giving him, we're making him, but we're also talking to him, being like, Ben, we need you to be the type of example. Tomlin mentioned it. After a 9-6-1 season, everyone in this organization, from the Rooneys, general manager, myself, and all the players, need to look at themselves, because this is not the product that we want to put out there. Now, if Ben happens to do something, listen, if you pay your leaders and your leaders are bad leaders and they get into trouble, then your organization is there's nothing. You can't win with that. So you can't expect Ben to be the one. But I'm expecting to make an example of someone in that locker room.
Well, guys have to understand, and I think this is what you're saying, the culture has to override everything. You see it in great places like New England. The culture overrides a player's individuality. At this point, he has to reestablish that. And I think Mike Tomlin, the guy that I know, he can reestablish that. He can go out there and do it. It's going to take some buy-in from his quarterback. His quarterback's going to have to rally the troops. That's going to be a huge thing.
And there's a couple ways to do it. There's the way that Cris is advocating, and there's a lot of value to that. You have a high-profile message sent from the head coach, and it reverberates throughout the locker room. And the second thing is you can pay someone that you feel exemplifies the things that you value.
Yeah, what they did with Pouncey and what they did with Foster, the offensive lineman.
Because no matter how much you say, he's our leader, whoever you pay a lot of money to, That's what the group says you value as an organization. So if they commit to the right type of guys that really feel supports what they believe in, that sends a message to the locker room as well.
All right, you guys stick around. Got to take a break. Coming up, the NBA MVP races go down to the wire. That is next on First Things First. On Sunday, NASCAR heads to Texas Motor Speedway, where Kyle Busch looks to continue his hot start. It is all Sunday at 3 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app. It is time for us to go viral here on First Things First. So Manu Ginobili spent his entire 16-year career with the Spurs. He won 4 titles. Last night, the team retired his jersey. It was an emotional ceremony. One of his closest teammates, Tim Duncan, spoke about his first memory of Manu.
I got that call from Pop. Every year I watch the draft. I sit at home, I tell everybody all day long, I'm not watching the draft, I'm not gonna do this. I sit at home, I watch the draft, and we pick people that I've never heard of. Yeah, sitting there, Emmanuel Ginobili. Who did we just pick? I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be great. He's this. He's okay, Pop. Whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's great.
It was great to see them
great.
back together. Tim Duncan dressed up dressed up.
He's dressed.
I don't know about that haircut. Where's he going?
I don't know what that style is right there.
He's creating his own style.
Got a slick back going on. I see it, Timmy.
That's a lot of free time on your hands when you're going in like.
But a nice night for Manu.
Yes,
And
that organization, they deserve all the accolades, man, drafting the players, developing the players, keeping them together. Tremendous job. Congratulations.
Good
Well
stuff.
deserved.
All right, now time for your AT&T wake-up call. Bryce Harper, Manny Machado both made their debuts for their new teams yesterday, and while both went hitless, both teams did win, and both stars did get a lot of love from their new fans. Both do have a chance to redeem themselves tomorrow on FS1. Phillies will take on the Braves. Padres will take on the Giants. It all starts at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on FS1 and the Fox Sports app, and it is good to have some baseball back. It's going to get nicer out. Got some baseball to watch.
Exciting year in Major League Baseball. A lot of new names, big cash in different places. So we need the whole regular season to find out where all these guys are. The postseason will be amazing. Dodgers started off with the long ball yesterday. So glad to have baseball back.
See, it's not easy to live up to a $330 million contract. Nobody knows that more than not me. To football now. Houston defensive tackle Ed Oliver impressed at his pro day yesterday. Ran a 4.73 40 as a D tackle. It's like my kind of speed. See, how good could Oliver be in the pros?
Now, he can be good. The thing I'm worried about, he was the only 5-star player we saw not go to one of the Power 5 conferences where he went to Houston. He was an immediate star, freshman All-American. Buyer beware. This might be more of a workout warrior than a Pro Football Hall of Famer. I know all his numbers match up to what Aaron Donald did, but let me tell you what doesn't match up to Aaron Donald. Watch the game tape. He don't get to the quarterback and get guys on the ground. He don't move that fast when he has the offensive lineman in front of him. So, yes, tremendous athlete now. One of the best in the league immediately, but how good he is at defensive tackle. As my man Warren Sapp told me yesterday, Chris Carter, them shuttles don't tackle quarterbacks. I said, okay, Sapp Daddy, okay.
All right, moving along to college basketball. Zion Williamson and Duke will take on Virginia Tech in the NCAA tournament. Duke barely escaped last round with a last-second win over UCF. Tuan, what are you expecting from Zion in this game?
Huge performance. They didn't play. They played 2 weeks ago. Zion didn't play. So they got to understand Virginia Tech is going against a different animal tonight. Look for him to be really aggressive. He's playing terrific basketball right now. I like the Duke to take this game down.
Duke plays outstanding defense. They're the favorite to be able to win this, also to be able to win the tournament. Watch three-point shooting. How many points Duke get from the three-point line? How many points they get in the paint? I believe Zion has a big day against Tech.
Yeah, no taco in this one. All right, to the NBA. Joel Embiid had a dominant performance last night, scored 39 points, grabbed 13 boards in a win over the Nets. Swin, what's the most impressive part of Joel Embiid's game?
He's a problem, and he knows it. And he comes out every day and he shows it. Bottom line, I mean, he gave him 16 points in the first quarter. Somebody has to check him on the inside. It has to be done by committee. If not, he's going to give you 40 every night. And on 28 minutes, CC, 28 minutes.
I know, impressive. I think the answer to that, He's good, and he knows it.
Yeah.
Attitude.
And what is it? And sometimes he comes out and shows it?
Sometimes comes out and shows it.
I like it. All right, finally, James Harden dropped 38 in a win over the Nuggets. Houston has now won 15 of their last 18. Antoine, any chance the Rockets break through and actually beat the Warriors this season?
They have the personnel and the confidence to do it. Obviously, the last couple of years, they have had the most success against this team. But I like where Houston's at right now. One, with James Harden, the way he's playing, we wondered if he was going to wear down towards the end of the season. He hasn't slowed down a bit. My one concern is Chris Paul. He's not at the level that he was last year before he got hurt, obviously, in the playoffs. They got to get Chris Paul back. And I know it's tough with 6-7 games left, but he has to get to playing good basketball. And then they got some pieces that didn't play last night that let's not forget about. Kenneth Faried, get him back. He's going to be huge. Gerald Green, another guy who come off the bench and get on a spark plug. Austin Rivers, I thought, was a great pickup and he's played great basketball all season. They got the right ingredients to play Golden State.
Yeah, and then also I like Iman Shumpert. I like them picking him up because he's a guy defensively that'll get after. He fits right into the mold of Houston. But I'm not as worried about CP3 showing up come playoff time. I'm more worried about his health. I want him to be healthy going into the playoffs because we know last year they were just one injury away from, I think, taking that next step. So the biggest thing for them right now is health. CP3 will be ready. And the thing that he gives Houston and why they could possibly knock off the Warriors, he takes the ball in his hands. He gets other guys involved. When James is out there, James is dominating the ball because he's a scorer. And we've seen how he's scored throughout this whole season so far. But when Chris has the ball, he gets all those other guys involved, and their game takes it to another level.
Do you think Chris Paul it's more of a veteran savvy move where he's just trying to make it to the playoff, then he's going to hit that extra gear? Because that's what I seem to see. He's playing very reserved in the offense. James is predominantly the ball handler most of the offensive time. Is that what you see?
That's what I see. That's what I see. I think Chris is being very smart down the stretch, making sure that he's healthy, the guys are involved. But when he's needed to take over in certain games, he stepped up, and we've seen that.
I think, Twan, the two questions I think we have going into the postseason for the Rockets is, one, can they win if Harden doesn't give you 30-plus every night? And two, you mentioned Shumpert, their defense. Can their defense hold up for the course of a series throughout the Western Conference playoffs?
I think if they plan, the guy they could avoid Golden State in that second round. You look at the standings right now, they're fourth. You want to see if you can get the 3. If they can get the 3 and avoid them and get a couple series under their belt, they'll give them a better chance of matchup-wise, I believe. I think this Houston team is very deep. They got to figure out who's going to be in their rotation. The problem that Houston gives Golden State, they make everybody guard. On Golden State. Steph Curry has to play defense because of Chris Paul. Obviously, then now Boogie Cousins with Clint Capella, as good as he is picking and rolling and running the break, he'll be another guy that puts a lot of pressure on Boogie Cousins. So I think the matchups are the biggest thing when you think about Houston against Golden State. The only thing I'm not really big on, I think last year, where Houston had an advantage, that home court advantage. I know they're very capable of going to Golden State and getting the win. They've proven that. But I think that home court advantage, there's something about Game 5 and 7. On your home floor. And I think that could be the difference of them getting past Golden State.
Now, Oracle, they've struggled in Oracle as far as Golden State this year. Now, will they have that? I don't believe they'll have that same attitude when it goes into the playoffs. They've been dominant there. I think you make a great point as far as, man, if you do have home court advantage, that Game 5, that Game 7 could be the advantage. Last year, they didn't have Chris Paul in this. I like their defense, though, to your question, because they're one of 2 teams that's ranked in the top 5 offensively and defensively. The other team would be Utah. So they've come a long way as far as their defense from the beginning of the year. And since February the 23rd, they got the best record in the NBA at 15-3. So
but they also had 2 defensive guys. You talked about Iman Shumpert and Kenneth Faried, 2 guys that play with a lot of energy and play on the defensive end, kind of make up for Trevor Ariza being gone.
Right, so I believe that they are gelling at the right time. They have added some key pieces, and they've given these guys confidence in the roles that they want them to play. Shumpert, Rivers, they're playing some of the better basketball that they've seen. I believe that Shumpert, when he gets to the playoffs, he will pay dividends because of his experience and because of that attitude that he brings to the team.
All right, let's move to the East now. Giannis, he left last night's game against the Clippers after re-aggravating that sprained ankle. Tough break for the guy trying to win his first MVP and lead the Bucks on an extended playoff push. It was reported Giannis clearly limping in the locker room after the game. When asked about it, he definitely had his concerns. Take a listen.
It's not going to be easy. It's, usually when you sprain your ankle, you tweak your ankle, you stay out for 2, 3, 4 games. but I don't like missing games, so I got to work through it while playing and try to get my strength whenever I got practices, and try to get my strength. And I think Laura's doing a great job just helping me with that and get my mobility back. We got 6 games left. Going to keep playing, try to play well. But I think the most important for this team is to stay healthy, and get the guys that they've been out, get them back, and have them get back to the rhythm and prepare them for the playoffs. But for this group, I think the main focus is health. And as long as we're still healthy, we're going to be fine.
So it's a big deal for this Bucks team. What kind of impact could his injury have on the Bucks' title hopes?
Ooh, you talking about a team that wants to run to the playoffs? This is the team right here in the Bucks. The injury bug has bit them at the wrong time. It's not even only Giannis. We have Brogdon that's out. Mirotic, I thought getting him in that trade, signing him was going to be big. Now he's out. Paul Gasol, who they picked up the last minute, thought he helped them in the playoffs. He's out. I mean, DiVincenzo's out for the season. So they've had all these players already out, and you talk about your big gun, your MVP going down. This is kind of scary to me right now because his mobility is what makes him so good. The ankles, we know, you have to have the ability to change direction, whether it's defense, offense, and we know that everything with Giannis is going downhill. So he's going to have to get healthy really fast.
Well, if you got 6 games left, you got to basically pretty much shut him down and let him get healthy. You can't take a chance of going into the playoffs without him being 100%. So you got to shut him down. It's unfortunate he's in a midst of an MVP race, but I think more importantly, if you look at the standings, they're 4 games up.
Yep.
And then, in the whole NBA. So you got to hope that your second unit, some of these other guys can step up, maybe get 2 out of 4 going into the playoffs where you can kind of still secure the #1 seed throughout the playoffs. I think that's huge. This is the best home team in the league, record-wise, so I think home court advantage is important for them, especially if you got hopes and aspirations of getting to the finals. You need to have home court advantage. You need any advantage when you're going against a team, possibly Golden State, coming out the West. So I think this is huge. You shut him down. Unfortunately, you would love for him to go out there, and like I said, he's in the middle of an MVP race. Hopefully he takes that out the equation and understand you're going for something a little bigger.
Yeah, I think the bigger goal is the most important thing. I don't know if I'm going to shut him down, but I'm definitely probably for the next 4 games, because I'd probably like him to play those last couple games where I might be able to get 1 or 2 of those other players to come back. But you mentioned it, man. Right now, what can prevent you from winning the championship? Golden State has had an unbelievable clean slate as far as when guys were injured. They were never stacked on each other where they had to deal with multiple injuries. That's part of their success the last 5 years. If Golden State is going, because I believe that Milwaukee is the best challenge for them from a roster standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, how they play ball consistently, but they can't do it without their full complement of players.
I can't, Chris. I'm not going to agree with the roster. I still think Toronto and Philly present a different problem than
Yeah, I think they might present a different problem.
But the Ace, this only reason I shut them down and don't bring them back at all, it's going to be tough for them to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's going to be tough to get out the East. So you need them to be everybody to be 100%. You take a chance, he come back and retweak that ankle, going in, then now you got to get him set back.
Okay.
Clearly, this is a nagging injury for him, and this is not something that'll just heal right away and you walk in and you're fine. Is there a way that he can adjust his game to protect the ankle and still manage to be effective, at least effective enough to help the Bucks' chances moving forward?
Well, I think the one thing right now that he has going for him is that medicine, technology, everything has advanced. So he will be in treatment 24 hours to be able to take care of this. They will throw everything that they can at him. But sometimes it's your body, how fast your body heals. And you don't, I agree with Twan on one thing. You don't want to come back too fast and go into the playoffs and you're not at 100% because they're going to need him at 100%. Right now, there are other guys. Bledsoe's played unbelievable lately, so maybe he can pick up the slack. You have another all-star on the team. But, Cece, I do agree with you on one thing. You like the idea of being back right before the playoffs, getting out 1 or 2 games, get yourself rolling a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Giannis isn't a guy that likes to sit, though.
What's plan B? What do you do if he isn't 100%, if he can't give you what we've seen from Giannis?
Well, if he's not 100%, he's like any other NBA player. Is he the LeBron James of the Eastern Conference? Because that's what we're going to see with Giannis. Yep. There were some times last year during the playoffs, he disappeared, especially on the road in fourth quarters. He disappeared. Now, if you are going to be that guy, if he's going to be the face of the NBA, there ain't no excuses. You play well with a sprained ankle. See, we don't know if he has that 0 dark 30 LeBron thing. And that's what we should be waiting to see. So that's regardless. Ankle, that's regardless. Who's hurt? Because we didn't make no excuse for LeBron. Kyrie's hurt. Okay. Kevin Love's out.
Right.
Okay, Giannis, it's time for that. You are at the age, you've had a great regular season. Right now, he's the MVP. They're the best team in the league. What happens is plan B is I will play hurt, and that's what we expect out of our best players.
I was just watching him. I just got so caught up in seeing where his foot, because he stepped on him, and then that's when it rolled over. Okay, well, you guys already know that, and now I know it too, so we all know it. Thanks, guys. Coming up, can Cowboys make a Super Bowl run with their new look D-line? That is ahead on First Things First. Tomorrow, the season's biggest free agents hit the field with their new teams. Bryce Harper and the Phillies take on Freddie Freeman and the Braves. You got the Giants facing off against Manny Machado and the Padres. It all starts at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Back here with Coach Mangini and Brian Westbrook. Surprise news out of New England. Greg Schiano stepping down as New England defensive coordinator after having the job for less than 2 months. He said in a statement, quote, "This is not the result of any one event, but rather a realization that I need to spend more time on my faith and my family." See, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to this news?
Well, I had to call my guy yesterday, Urban Meyer, to find out what's the story with Greg, and he said he had talked to him yesterday, and it was a brief conversation. And Urban knows him very well because he hired him as his defensive coordinator, you know, after his stint there with Tampa Bay. But I believe that Greg has gone through a period that a lot of coaches go through where they just keep coaching and they never give themselves time to recover. Because in 2011-12, he was one of the hottest coaches in pro football and college football. He leaves Rutgers, takes the job in Tampa Bay, has a bad stint there, has some bad stuff happen. He's got defensive linemen. When they're trying to run out the clock, he's got them jumping the snap, hitting guys and everything. The optics just were not good. And then he decided that, you know, I'm going to resurrect my career and go to Ohio State, take over one of their programs, run the best defense, top 5 in the defense a couple years in a row, gets one of the best jobs in the country, Tennessee. And then the Twitter mob got him. Someone released information saying that he was associated with the Penn State, and they took the job away from him before he could officially be announced as the head coach. And I believe since then, he has not recovered. He hadn't had time for his body to decompress, his brain to decompress, and he went right back into a pressure-packed situation. Urban Meyer, what he was going through at Ohio State. This year, their defense was not good after dominating. They were 13-1, but the defense was one of the worst Ohio State's had the last 20 years. So I just think the pressure of it, analyzing, man, and went right back to coaching in another pressure situation that he took a look at and was like, wow. Man, I need to really check myself, and that's what he did. I don't believe there's anything else to the story besides that. If there is, I'll be on it trying to find it out. But as of right now, that's what Urban Meyer, who happens to be one of his good friends, that's what he said, Coach.
And look, this position isn't for everybody. And it's,
you're talking about the defense coordinator in New England.
In New England. It's not for everybody, and being on that staff isn't for everybody. And what makes this so difficult is when you go to a situation where there's an established defensive philosophy, the head coach is defensive-minded, and that's a little bit of an understatement, and you've got to go and try to learn that defense and execute that defense the way that they expect it to be. That makes it more challenging. And you don't have your people in place. Again, that's another layer of it. And when you've been a former head coach and you've had a lot of responsibility at your last job, and now you go into this job where you're a soldier. There's no officers club in New England. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult to deal with as well. And you may look at the whole body of work and say, I don't really want to do this for the next 12 months. Look, I've run long enough to know that I don't want to run a marathon. You know, like that's not what I want to do. And sometimes you get in those situations and you realize this just isn't me. I know it's shocking. I know it is.
I was a little surprised.
What makes New England great, especially offensively, really, when we talked about this, Coach, offensively and defensively, is that they can go into a game and they'll change their entire defensive philosophy. We played them in the Super Bowl 04. We thought we were expecting the 3-4. Yes. They came out and played a 4-3 the entire game, threw us off of our entire game plan. And Coach made this point. That philosophy, that culture that's willing to be able to change, a lot of coaches want to go in and say, this is what we are, this is what we do every single day. We're going to do this until we die. In New England, it's something different. It says, listen, we're going to be prepared. We're going to outwork everyone else. You're going to be in the office early. You're going to stay late because you have to be able to be multiple. The biggest 3 things in New England is great coaching, obviously starts at the top, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and then smart players being able to change things within. As for a coach, and I've never coached, but I can see it on their coaches' faces, You have to be in there and know everything to be able to coach in New England. That's a hard task to ask someone, especially if they only want to do one thing really, really good.
And with the players, when you have really smart players, they ask a lot of questions, and they ask why. And it's their right to do that, and you like that as a coach because you know that they're engaged, and you need to be able to give them really good answers. And when you're coaching a system that's not your system, sometimes you don't have those answers. Sometimes you don't know those answers, and now you're in a position that's a little bit insecure.
It's not a powerful position, and I know because I got offered to coach at a prominent college with a prominent coach with a really strong disposition, and things were going to have to be taught a certain way. Now, in my introduction to him, I was teaching the wide receivers a lot of things that were very different than anything he had ever seen. Now, I saw him gravitate to that. But when it came down to it, it was about teaching football a certain type of way. I know in my interview I was allowed to be flexible and coached away, but I didn't know if he was going to continue to allow that. So it's an unusual pressure to teach something that you're not an expert on. So you're not getting my best because I'm teaching his stuff to these kids, and I don't have the support because I don't have my other lieutenants to be able to be like, okay, this is what coach really means. So I thought it was going to be a tough task. There is no job at New England that's easy, and look at the last couple years. They lost their defensive signal caller. They hired Gerard Mayo as a linebacker coach, a guy who used to play with them. So they got a lot of inexperience on that staff defensively that we haven't seen in a long, long time.
Clearly, all three of you know a little bit more of football than I do, about all of the football than I do. But is it that much different at other teams? I mean, what are the tangible differences between being a coordinator on the Patriots than what's expected of you when you walk into an NFL organization where you have to run a defense, even if the defensive philosophy is already in place?
It depends how you walk in. If you get to walk in and bring your system, and you get one or two of your guys who know the way that you want to teach things, the way that you expect things to be done, know the answers to the questions, then you've got a chance. And it's still hard in year one because you've got to get everybody on board. But as you walk in and you're the one that doesn't know the defense or doesn't know the system and you've got to learn it, but you're the expert and your group who is really smart and talented and successful knows those things, it's difficult. Now you've also got a head coach who's arguably one of the best defensive coaches or the best defensive coach in the history of the game as your boss. That adds another layer to this and another layer of pressure.
Yeah, it's just like from a philosophy standpoint. If Tony Dungy goes somewhere and you make him your defensive coordinator, you have to adopt Tony Dungy's philosophy. We're going to be undersized on the defense. We're going to be very fast. We're going to be flow to the ball. We're going to play a lot of cover two. We're not going to blitz a lot. Right. So I need a ball control offense. But when you lose that control, Schiano doesn't have control of what we're going to rush. He don't have control if we're going to play a 34. At Ohio State, he had access to recruit the best players in the world, coached them however he wanted to, because Urban Meyer, that's the reason why he brought him there. If I want to rush, if I want to play a 34, I can play a 34. I want to play a 40. If I want to be a multiple, you can't do that when you inherit the New England, that defensive coordinator job.
Hey, Brian, so let's look ahead to the Patriots defense as it is right now. What do you make of what they're going to have, and what do you expect to see from them going into next season?
I don't think anything changes. Again, the offense and the personnel, as far as Tom Brady being there, that's the big part of the team. You add, of course, Bill Belichick there. But it's all for them, and it's been this way for a long time. You input different pieces into the same machine. You get these guys that can do the same thing. They're smart. They can be multiple. You can change things on the fly. You can change things on Sunday morning, the day of the game, and they find a way to get it work, get it done. It's all about Bill Belichick and his staff. It starts at the top and flows all the way to the
I'm still concerned about the defense. If you look at the number of coaches that have left there in the last couple of years, Matt Patricia going to Detroit. Every time you lose one of your guys, he's going to take 3 or 4 people in the building. We can't see the collateral damage, but you can start to see the offensive productivity starting to slow down. The defense wasn't dominant, and did they play well as a team? But every time we have the defensive coordinator this year going to Miami, he took 3 or 4 people out the door. Ultimately, you can run out of lieutenants. Like, you start losing people from your tree. And at this point in the offseason, March, there ain't no good defensive coordinator available. Only one available is he's on TV. And Bill ain't calling him, and that's Coach Mangini. Coach Mangini could do it. He can run the defenses without me talking to him. But there aren't great coaches out there on the sideline at this time of the year that you can just go out and pluck and be like, oh, yeah, let's come. It's the New England way. No, it does not work that way.
I think they have a chance.
Not to put you in a bad position, Coach.
No, not at all. With Brett,
I prefer you here. You guys
so do I.
me for the next
like,
2
what
years.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
they've got Brett Bielema on the. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, on the staff, and he was there last year, so at least he understands how things operate. And he was a head coach for a long time, but he could potentially transition that role. What about Stephen Belichick? He's a safeties coach. Put him in that position. He's 32 years old. Guys are getting head coaching jobs at 32. Why can't he coach the defense? There's not going to be anybody that Bill's more vested in than Stephen's success, and I can see that potentially happening as well. And Brian Belichick's on the staff. Also, there could be a transitioning, and maybe that's the next phase of the family business.
All right, break it there. Guys, stick around. Take a break. Coming up. Will Giannis' injury impact the MVP race? That's next. First things first. FS1 is your destination for the day's best sports shows. Tune in for the biggest personalities on the biggest stories. We get you started right here on First Things First. You can catch it on Monday through Friday, only on FS1. We're back here with Swin Cash. We're playing Drawing a Blank. Wait, do you want to play Drawing a Blank, Swin?
I love to play.
Let's do it. Last night, Giannis hurt his ankle when he stepped on Garrett Temple's foot. However, Giannis has led the books to an NBA best 57 wins so far this season. CC, the MVP this season should be blank.
You got to go with the guy's team going to win 60 games. Coach Bud and what they've done there, best player on the best team, having the best season of his career. His stats are phenomenal. I think the leading the NBA in unassisted dunks, getting in the paint. It talks about how he's elevated his overall dribbling skills. He's put on that 15 pounds of bulk, Jenna, that you're always gushing
Love
over.
it.
Ooh, Giannis got muscles. Ooh.
Very muscular, Swin.
So she is into that. Giannis, MVP.
I'm going to have to go with CC. I agree that Giannis is the MVP. And the reason why is when he's giving you 27 points and 13 rebounds a game, those numbers are unbelievable. But think about this. In the offseason, he said he wanted to be MVP. Called Kobe Bryant up on the phone. He said, I ain't working out with you other guys. I'm going to do me. And he's doing him this year.
Oh, I like
Has his team #1 overall seed right now in the regular season. And, I mean, you have to think about it. Who else besides him would be MVP? It'd be James Harden. He had an unbelievable season, but his team is not the #1 overall right now.
All right, you're both in on Giannis. Moving on, Coach of the Year. Mike Budenholzer led the aforementioned Bucks to their most wins since 1986, but Doc Rivers has also done a great job keeping the Clippers alive out west, and Mike Malone has the Nuggets in contention for the 1 seed. Swin, in your opinion, the Coach of the Year should be blank.
There's a lot of people that could be up for the Coach of the Year, a lot of teams that have done well, but I have to give it to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers has his team right now won 9 out of 10, and they came in this season, picked 11th to win. They are in the playoffs right now, sitting comfortably with a #6 seed. Could go up a little bit higher. Clippers right now looking good. Doc Rivers, my Coach of the Year.
I can always co-sign for Doc. What he's done at the trade deadline, we thought they were tanking.
Oh, yeah.
They're getting ready for the lottery pick. But Doc said, no, sir. Predicted only win 33 games. A great vote there. But what they're doing in Milwaukee with the best record. Coach Bud, people thought. Nick Wright told me, man, Coach Bud's going to bring Giannis's game. I said, I believe Coach Bud is one of the better coaches. Underrated where he was. He's elevated the staff. Look how they play basketball. Look at their defensive end, how they've elevated that, and how he's helped change those couple roster moves has really elevated this team. I'm going with Coach Bud.
You mentioned that the Clippers came in at the 11th seed. You know who's in the 11th seed now? The Lakers.
Oh,
Funny
yeah.
how things
And
change.
they're stepkids in that building, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go. This year, NBA's rookie class has 2 elite standouts in Luka Doncic and Trae Young. In NBA history, Luka's stat line is only rivaled by Oscar Robinson's rookie year back in 1961. On the flip side, Trae Young is the first rookie since Allen Iverson to average 18 points, 7 dimes. Swin, the Rookie of the Year should be blank.
Should be Luka Doncic. He started out the season unbelievable and has sustained it throughout. This kid is putting up numbers. Came into the NBA with a grown man's game. His poise, his patience, his ability to get to the basket. I mean, he's unbelievable. Giving you a triple-double. This is the guy right now that's Rookie of the Year for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with Luka. Nick's been on Luka's bandwagon since last year, watching those grainy little European tapes. He's been better than we expected. You mentioned a couple people. LeBron James. He's been the best since LeBron James, Oscar Robertson, 61. Those are iconic names. Luka is the best. Trey has been phenomenal, especially playing in Atlanta. Atlanta's a tough spot now. I had a little young lady almost flunked out of college going to Atlanta, going back and forth on Delta. Now, Atlanta is
Good
tough.
that we know that.
Tough on a brother. Swin, don't answer.
Glad that we know that information. Let's look forward. The Warriors are still the team to beat in the NBA. Many expect them to turn it up another level when the playoffs start. CC, the team best equipped to knock off the Warriors this season is blank.
I'm going to say this, and I know I got a couple injuries that I'm just hoping that they're able to heal. I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks. I believe that their overall length that they provide, I believe that Golden State doesn't have an answer for Giannis off the bounce. I believe him and KD would be a great matchup. And I believe that the person that makes the difference, Brook Lopez, being able to bring the 5 out to the 5 and shoot that three-pointer on a regular basis, Milwaukee Bucks, to me, they give the Warriors fits.
For me, I'm going to go with the Raptors. And they're a team that who thought after Masai made that trade with DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard, all of a sudden the Raptors are right there with the potential to actually take, if the Bucks start losing a couple games, they could probably possibly get that #1 seed. Kawhi Leonard's been unbelievable. They really managed his minutes out there on the floor, but they play well as a team. 6th man of the year, Siakam, I think he will get it for them. He's playing well. They have the pieces right there.
All right, moving on. James Harden has scored 183 points in clutch time this season, most in the NBA. Kemba, Kawhi, Kyrie, and Paul George round out the top 5. CC, the player you'd want to take the last shot in a playoff game for your team?
Probably in the guy that's gotten the most criticism in the last several years, and that's Kevin Durant. He's the most efficient scorer I've ever seen in the NBA, who can play at a high level. You can't block his shot at 7 foot from 27 feet on in. He can get anywhere on the court to be able to score. Yeah, Harden, he's got to have 10 dribbles. He's got to have a pick. KD doesn't need that, and KD does not take bad shots. Great free throw shooter. So KD, if I got one shot and I need a guy to get me a bucket, KD's my guy.
I have to agree with you on that one. You got to put the ball in KD's hand. Right now, he's arguably one of the best, if not the best player in the NBA. His ability to get to the basket, his ability to shoot from the outside, he can do a little bit of everything, and he's a hard guard for anybody.
All right, Swin, was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun. That was easy. I thought you had more questions for me.
We do. We'll do them in the commercial break, though. Thanks, Swin. Coming up, why does Antonio Brown have the rest of the league nervous? That's next on First Things First. Back here with Antoine Walker, we are going viral, Twan. Last night, Luka Doncic and Goran Dragic faced off for the first time in the NBA. The two were good friends. Both play on the Slovenia national team, obviously. Reportedly, 2,000 fans from Slovenia were in attendance to watch the two play. Check this out. That was great. Remember when Giannis came out and there were a bunch of fans from Greece that came down and he had everyone in the contingency just screaming and yelling? That's what it reminded me.
Man, that's a nice little trip there, man. To South Beach, Miami.
That's a great trip. I feel like that's when I go back home, Chicago on the south side.
Good stuff.
Yeah, they're shouting stuff.
Yeah, they ain't doing that.
Yeah, they shouting stuff.
Okay. Thank you for translating. I'm always usually lost on this set, Antoine, and now someone actually brought me with them. Time for your AT&T wake-up call. James Harden dropped 38 points in a win over the Nuggets. Houston has now won 15 of its last 18. CC, any chance the Rockets break through, maybe beat the Warriors this season? They came close last year.
Well, this is the thing, and you got to give them credit as far as revamping this roster. They're not playing the style they played at with last year. They're playing more with Harden, dominating the basketball. That style's been effective. Since January 23rd, they're the best team in the NBA. So I think they're in the right position, but more importantly, Chris Paul is healthy, and if he can be healthy when they face the Warriors, that gives them the best chance.
And they did a good job of adding pieces to this team after losing a couple key pieces, adding Amon Shepard, adding Kenneth Faried, Austin Rivers.
Yes.
Got the roster back as talented as it was last year. They had a legitimate shot of taking on the Golden State Warriors.
All right, moving on. Giannis left last night's game against the Clippers after re-aggravating that sprained ankle. Tough break for the guy trying to win his first MVP and lead the Bucks on an extended playoff push. Antoine, will this sidetrack the Bucks' title hopes?
A little bit. Obviously, you want to make sure he's 100% going into the playoffs. So you got 6 games left. You got a little cushion. You got a 4-game league as the best record in the league. So that gives you a little sigh of relief. But they need to get him back 100%. He's a rhythm player. He plays above the rim, so you got to make sure that ankle's 100%.
Yeah, it's probably this is their 3rd or 4th injury. Paul Gasol, he's injured. Brogdon, their most important, their starting guard, he's injured with that plantar injury. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. You don't need Giannis. You need Giannis to be healthy. I think they should rest him for at least the next week, the last couple games. If he's healthy enough, try to get him at least 1 or 2 games before the playoffs start.
All right, let's stick in the East. Joel Embiid had a dominant performance last night. He scored 39 points, grabbed 13 boards in a win over the Nets. Antoine, what's the most impressive part of Joel Embiid's game?
One is size, his ability to put the ball on the floor, shoot the 3, array of moves. Could arguably be one of the top 3 centers of all time because we've never seen a skill set by a big man like this in a long time. You should look at Akeem Olajuwon and be like, oh, he was terrific. But this guy here has a different skill set. His ability to do so many things on the court is unbelievable.
Yeah, most impressive thing, Jenna, when he's been on the court, he's so consistent. He's got 27 games this year where he scores 30 points and grabs 10 rebounds, best in the NBA. That right there, been able to do it at a high level because we thought that he was nice in the post. We didn't know he could score as much as he can score. Like, typically a big man, if he's really good, he's going to get you 17 to 22. We don't see big men being one of the top 5 scorers in the NBA. One day, he could potentially lead the NBA in scoring. That part right there is impressive.
Let's talk about sex. Good sex. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Now you can increase your performance and get that extra confidence in bed. Listen up. BlueChew.com. That's blue like the color blue. BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. And since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Now, this isn't just for guys who can't perform. It's for any guy who wants extra function to enhance their performance in the bedroom. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package, so no in-person doctor's visits, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment free when you use our special promo code FTF. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BLUE Chew.com, promo code FTF to try it free. That's Frank Thomas Frank. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
All right, finally, the Celtics are taking on the Pacers tonight. Could very well be a preview of the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. The Celtics have struggled recently, winning only 1 of their last 5 games. Antoine, do you trust Kyrie Irving and this team with the playoffs right around the corner?
Not right now. It's tough to say that you trust them. They're not playing good basketball. Got off the snide the other night with Kyrie sitting out against Cleveland. But tonight is going to be a huge game to see where they're at, a team they're going to have to face possibly in the first round. They lost 12 games at home, so I believe that, I'm not saying that the home court is that important,
right,
because they haven't been great at home, but this will see the rotation, see who's going to be the best matchups for them going against the Pacers. So, and they also play, they can play them over an 8-day period twice. So this would be huge for them to see where they at going to the Pacers, if they can see if they can match up really well them to get an advance.
Yeah, this question, I have to separate it. And I have to separate the Celtics from Kyrie. So 2 questions. Do I trust Kyrie? I trust Kyrie. I cuss the Celtics. Now, I know Kyrie is on the Celtics, and the Celtics don't play as good as basketball. Their system is not as efficient when he's on there. But Kyrie is having a career year. It's not his fault that his style is at conflict with Brad Stevens and what he wants to do. It's not his fault that the other players have not grown in their second year. It's not his fault that Gordon Hayward, did not bounce back from the injury and is not as explosive. It hadn't been consistent. Like those things, but when you're the best player and you're a potential free agent, and then some of his answers to some of the other questions, I could see why people would blame him. But I believe Kyrie is going to have one of the better playoffs that he's had, because he's going to be sending a message. Now, does that lead to the Celtics playing their best basketball? I don't believe that their system will allow both those things to happen.
This kind of reminds me, and it's not that we had some injuries, but after we won a championship, the second to this, when we was trying to repeat, we kind of cruised through the season. Shaq missed 30-plus games. D-Wade was out, and we won 44 games. But the problem with that is that we were not a very good basketball team. We thought we were going to be able to turn it on because of our championship pedigree. After we won it the year before, we thought we could just turn it on. The roster was pretty much the same. We came back with the same guys, and we got swept by the Chicago Bulls. I mean, they kicked our butts in the first round of the playoff series. It's not the kind of, I wouldn't put it as that bad with Boston. I think they have the ability to win in the first round series, but you can't just turn it on come playoff time.
Right.
Don't you think the Celtics can look to what the Pacers did this year and say, hey, that was us last year. Great complimentary basketball without their star player, but just doing it without a lot of drama, without a lot of noise, quietly making their way through the Eastern Conference. It seems like maybe they can take something out of this game tonight on what it's like for them to do, you know, for the Pacers to be doing basically what the Celtics did last year on their push to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good story, but I don't believe that either their front office or their coach is going to point to the Pacers and try to use them as an example, because you're in real time. Man, Terry Rozier wants to play more. He wants a big-time contract. Kyrie is thinking about where he's going to go this offseason. Gordon Hayward's still not getting any better, and he's still getting those minutes. Jaylen Brown, man, one day him and Tatum, they want a max deal. So all these things, yeah, Indiana, great story there. Great story with the Pacers. The Celtics did have that last year, but it's hard to believe for Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward to join this young, talented team and for them to be like, hey, man, it's our fault. Like, the team's not as good this year with us. So I don't think that will be their perspective going into this series or these games, last couple games with the Pacers.
So then my follow-up would be, why has it been so hard for Kyrie why has he been struggling with leadership so much this season? Why has that been so tough for him?
But sometimes, you know, you can bite off more than you can chew. And you got to remember this. You also got to remember, Cleveland is different than Boston when it comes to media. I played 7.5 years in Boston. That's a different animal when it comes to the media. I got Bob Ryan covering me, Jackie McMullen,
icons in the business
that have been around a long time and that don't give you a break. I think now with social media, with the internet, it's different. And then Kyrie's getting asked the tough questions. You used to have LeBron James in that corner.
A little buffer.
You got LeBron James with 40 cameras in his face, and then you get to 10. Now you got the 40 in your face, and a lot of guys are not ready for that and don't understand that. When you play in major market cities where the local media, the radio stations are on you every day and watching your every move, you got to be prepared to answer those questions, and he was not prepared this year.
Yeah, and everyone, like a lot of times, and I believe that Kyrie and KD are put in this in the same light. It was a lot like Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch was not good with the camera. He did not feel comfortable, didn't want to do interviews, got a lot of fines, and really had a lot of negative publicity. Good football player, great in the locker room, guys love him, but we think that all these athletes are cookie cutter. All of them are going to do an interview like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan with a suit on, tie on, he's not sweating. Like, he was the first athlete that I ever saw that, man, he's got it all together. He's not win, lose, he remains calm after the game. He's never upset. And I asked Mike about it, and he was like, that's the image that I want to be able to give people. We don't give athletes that opportunity now. Now they have to have everything together. All their answers have to be correct, like Russell Wilson. You ask Russell a tough question. Russell, hey, man, love my teammates. Man, we're going to try it. You know, we lost that one. Going to look at it, going to look at the film, going to try to get better. All these guys, KD, man, he's guilty of that from the public. Kyrie they're not bad guys. But as far as mastering the press conference and all that and trying to be a leader, like, sometimes we put that leadership on our greatest players, and sometimes they don't want to lead. They just want to follow. And that's what I think I saw this year with Kyrie.
So aren't you worried then if Kyrie does come to New York? There's no bigger place for media scrutiny than here in New York.
Oh, but yeah, you got to worry, especially if he's going to be 1A. But, you know, they have room for get 2 max guys. If he goes with a KD, not saying KD,
same thing with KD.
Yeah, but if you go with another guy that can kind of take that pressure off you. When you look at the Boston roster, they got good pieces on their team. They don't have another big personality on their team just yet.
Yes.
So, you know, he goes to New York, it's going to be just as tough as it was in Boston. He got to be prepared
I
for
think
that.
the New York in the staff that they have there from the front office and what they're trying to do, Scott Perry. I think that they'll put some buffers out there. Also understanding with Fizdale, I know the personality of these two stars. Fizdale was with Dwayne Wade, with LeBron and them. You can be a buffer. Like Danny Ainge and them, they could help Kyrie and them out in these types of situations, realizing that's what Golden State's done. Now when Kevin Durant says something like, hey, it's not that big of a deal because they got Steph there, they got Clay there. They have other guys that are able to buff that message, and I believe the Knicks, if we have both of them here in the city, I believe the Knicks in their front office will have those types of things in place.
Sure make for a good time. Antoine, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Take a break. Coming up, the Eagles making a big move. That's next. First things first. Back here on First Things First with Coach Mangini and Brian Westbrook. We're going viral. Jimmy Butler, four-time NBA All-Star, known for his work ethic, decided to try his hand against one of the best in the NFL. Take a listen.
What's it like training with Antonio Brown and Russell Wilson?
Humbling. I'm a competitor. I still think I owe him, it's like $30,000 because I made a bet that I could stop him from catching the ball in the red zone.
Didn't work out for you.
You know, you're talking about the best receiver in the league and then Russ at quarterback. Just saying, if the Raiders had me opposite of him, you never know where we could go.
Well, I did see you smoke Klay Thompson on that go route.
You don't want to talk about that, but since you brought it up, he can't guard me on the football field either.
30,000.
Why would he make that bet? He needs to stay out of Vegas.
No, that's that NBA, that guaranteed money, man. It's all guaranteed, man. Ain't no
giving that away, trying to cover him.
That's what it was. Absolutely giving it
just
away.
one day's lunch money, $30,000 for NBA players.
Well, Jimmy Butler, I got a challenge for you. I had a smooth 53. You think you can stop me in the red zone? Stack up some of your money. Now, my stack ain't as high as yours, but I'll relieve some of it from you.
Hey,
He can't stop me in the red zone.
Yeah,
red zone?
I'd like to bet on you, too, if
Oh,
you get
no.
that going.
Red zone, you can believe that. Jimmy Butler.
All right, moving on. The Eagles acquired Jordan Howard from the Bears for a sixth-round
Thanks,
pick.
Coach.
The soon-to-be fourth-year back has had over 900 yards in his first 3 seasons. Brian, what do you expect from this Eagles offense, especially with Carson Wentz now back under center as the guy this year?
You know, this Eagles team, not just the offense, the team is going to go as Carson Wentz goes. And you have a quarterback a couple years ago, MVP candidate, over 30 touchdowns, throwing the ball all over the field, able to escape the pocket, get things done down the field with his legs as well as his arm. And so when he's healthy, he's a special player. We saw last year an unhealthy Carson Wentz was a totally different guy. I think you add Deshaun Jackson, you open up the field just a bit. You saw the emergence of Zach Ertz last year, a Pro Bowl type of guy in the receiver slot. Alshon's still going to be that. I think when you add Jordan Howard, you bring some stability to that running back room. Now it's not so much of a running back by committee. He's a guy that you can get 15, 16, 17 carries a game. The big question for Jordan Howard is this. You know, Kansas City, Chicago, Philadelphia, they use almost the same type of offense. That's the same offense that last year Jordan Howard got phased out of because Tariq Cohen, a smaller back, similar to Darren Sproles, was taking up so many of the carries. The question has to be, how does he fit in with this offense? They need a back. They want a back that can catch out of the backfield. That's not what Jordan Howard does.
The one thing that stood out to me is if he can stay healthy, and it's 16 games, it's 13 games, it's 11 games, it's health issues in college, and it's the way that he plays. And we talk about this all the time with young quarterbacks. You've got to make better business decisions as to when to run with the ball, when to hold the ball, how many hits that you can take, and he takes hits at a much higher rate than a lot of guys do, and they're unnecessary. Now, whether or not he can figure that out, I don't know, because the pressure is on. He hasn't done anything in the postseason. People want to know whether or not he can do that. And now, with him being the only person there, with the safety valve gone, if things go south, that noise in Philly is going to get louder and louder, and the pressure is going to get greater and greater.
Yeah, I like what Philadelphia has done as far as Howard Roseman. If Carson Wentz, if he's our concern, you know, him going forward, how do we make him better? They've added 2 components to his game that should be able to help him. They brought in a big banger, and my question with him is not only his health, but what's his proper playing weight? If you watch video of him when he was younger, seems like either the HD or something changed, or as he got older, his hips got a little bit wider. Like with young players, that becomes a reality. So can he get to that proper weight to be able to give them the type of banger? They have an old offensive line. Old offensive line, they need some help. So establish a physical running game, which they had 2 years ago when they wanted to go to it, when their offense was the absolute best. And you're talking about being the absolute best. They brought in Deshaun Jackson, his ability. So now we have Jordan Howard. We can play action. Deshaun Jackson, the best in the history of the NFL. No player has more 60-yard touchdowns than Deshaun. So now you add, I bring a big banger, so now I get those eyeballs in the backfield. What did Carson not do well in 2018? Throw the ball deep, which he did in 2017. I bring Jack back in to take the top off of that defense. I believe in all the things they do lead back to the quarterback playing better football, because all those other systems, Chicago, what's going to be their problem late in the season? Can they run the ball? Kansas City, what was their problem last year? Couldn't run the ball. So all these versions of this Andy Reid offense, you need a component to be physical, even in this new day in the age in the NFL where they're trying to throw the ball.
What other mistakes did this team make last year that Doug Peterson's going to have to address going into this year, coming off that Super Bowl win 2 years ago?
Well, I don't know if it was a mistake. I think as it turned out, when you depend on older players, and me and Coach just had a good conversation, at some point you have to turn the page from some of the older players. The good teams, the exceptional teams, are willing to say, hey, you're 30. We're going to push you out of the door. I think last year they depended on Jason Peters. He was hurt for most of the season. They depended on Darren Sproles. He was hurt for most of the season. And, of course, you depend on Carson Wentz. He's not an older player, but he's coming back from injury. You depended on these guys' pivotal positions to help your team. You didn't get very much from any of those guys. Carson played a little bit more than everyone else. But at the same time, you need excellent performance from all those guys. Jason Peters will be coming back again this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy the entire season.
And in fairness to them, they were in uncharted waters. And I talked about this a lot going into the season. After you win a Super Bowl, the pressures are different, the expectations are different, the way the offseason is different, and there's a bunch of lessons that can be learned from that. And they were fortunate to make the playoffs, and they made a nice run in the playoffs. Now, what did they take away from that year two so that they can have sustained success year in and year out, as opposed to 1 year up, 1 year down?
I think this year, not having all the distractions. Last year, I joked about it. The coach writing a book. Now, Doug, God bless you. I take advantage of all the opportunities. But I know in Philadelphia, when you're a world champion, you can go anywhere, get free food. You can go anywhere, sign autographs, and make money. So I thought that was a critical mistake. Their whole offseason, look at it. It's been so much smoother than the previous offseason. They're not celebrating a world championship. So I believe that they bounce back, and they're one of the true contenders that we have in the in the NFC to be able to represent in Super Bowl in Miami.
The only wrinkle was, and it was just right after the season ended, where we heard a little bit more about Carson Wentz and his relationship with other teammates, some of them calling him out for not being a great teammate. He actually came out and addressed it and said, yes, that's on me. That's something I can do better. Just tell me about where his headspace must be heading into this season now.
Well, I think that the guys were trying to help him be a much better quarterback. He still was a young man. You're talking about a second-year quarterback. He was still a very young man. He needed some help. Some of the older guys wanted to help him, and he seemed to be a little bit resistant to that. They saw how Nick Foles, you can go to him and say, Nick, hit the running back in the flat. Look for the tight end on the crossing route. Carson just didn't seem to come off that same way. I think Carson has to understand that. You've seen situations like Big Ben in Pittsburgh, and guys weren't feeling the way that when they approached Big Ben, he didn't give them that same type of response back. I think Carson has to be sensitive to those things. But most importantly, he has to be healthy. That's the most important thing that Carson has to do. Be healthy. Winning cures a lot of those simple things.
Rodney Harrison once said to me, the league has a way of humbling you. And when you come in and you're anointed as the savior and you have some early success, you can really start believing how good you are. But the truly great players are the ones that, regardless of how much fame, success, money, they work the same way every day. And I talk about this with Tom Brady. He has a humbleness and he appreciates what goes into being great. And for him to be able to take a step back and deal with older players and listen to the input and learn from those guys, that's huge. And all it does is it helps you, and it also endears you to the locker room. So hopefully he'll do more of that.
It's hard to do when you're not healthy. Regardless of what the organization has said, regardless of what stamp, regardless of if I'm an MVP candidate, if you are not healthy, you cannot lead an NFL locker room. So the biggest problem, I would say, hadn't been that he wasn't receptive, that he was only a part-time leader. Because You can be the starter and you can lead. But, man, as soon as you get hurt, especially if it's season ending, your leadership is squashed. So 2 out of the 3 seasons that he's played in, he ain't had the opportunity to be the leader because you can't even come into the locker room and even challenge guys when you're not hurt. I mean, when you're hurt, you'll be like, oh, I'm going to the field. Where are you going? I'm going to the training room. Oh, okay, well, zip it, buddy. Because that's what we have a tendency to do in the locker room. So just look at 2 of the last 3 seasons ended for him because of injury. You know Westbrook. Man, you've been a starter. You've been a backup player. Man, the starters have the biggest voices. They have the biggest roles. People respect you. When you are hurt, you don't have the type of impact, your voice, the overall respect that they have from you. All that goes down.
You're absolutely right about that. You have to also have to think about this team won a Super Bowl with the backup quarterback starting.
Yes.
Not the guy that you're going to end up paying a bunch of money, the guy that has the face of the franchise. They're the backup guy. And the way that he went about it is totally different than the way Carson went about it. Total different thing.
Absolutely. And they're the only team in the league that you say, okay, where are our backups in? You think you're better off? Philadelphia is the only team that can answer yes. Right. Every other team we know, if their starter gets hurt, listen, their season is getting ready to get derailed, whatever type of hopes they had. But in Philly, they didn't have that, and that could be an issue as far as the players because they've seen the backup have success.
All right, take a break there. See you guys in a little bit. Coming up, how can Zion Williamson and Duke avoid the upset tonight? That's next on First Things First. Tomorrow, the season's biggest free agents hit the field with their new teams. First, Bryce Harper and the Phillies take on Freddie Freeman and the Braves. Then the Giants face off against Manny Machado and the Padres. All the action starts at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on FS1 and on the Fox Sports
All right, Bryce,
app.
we need to bat on the ball now.
Back here with NCAA champ Antoine Walker, and let's talk a little college hoops. Zion Williamson and Duke will take on Virginia Tech in the Sweet 16 round of the NCAA tournament tonight. Zion trying to keep his magical season alive while also bringing Duke a national title. Small goals, baby steps. Antoine, what's the key to Duke avoiding the Sweet 16 upset tonight?
I think one, you got to start with pace of play. Virginia's a team that's want to walk it up the court. They want to play more of a half-court style. Very good defensive team. Duke has to get out and transition, run, play up to their – because you got those 2 wing guys. You want to get out and get some easy buckets. You got to think about the Achilles heel of Duke. They don't shoot threes well, only shoots 30%, and then the free throw shooting can become a problem. When you talk about your 2 best players only shooting 65%. So you put those 2 things in perspective, that's the only way you're going to really beat Duke. But for Duke to avoid the upset, just get out in the break. Let those 2 wings get out there, and so you don't have to play a half-court game.
Now, I like the game plan as far as Duke being able to play with pace. Coming into the tournament, not only was Duke the worst shooting 3-point team, but out of I think 330th ranking in 3-point shooting in NCAA this year. We've never seen a team win a tournament that shoots the ball from the 3 worse than Duke does. So that's their Achilles heel. So slowing down the game for VTech, playing the style for which they want to, taking advantage of their possessions, trying to pound the ball inside against Duke, because we saw even last week, I know we don't have a 7'6" guy in Taco, but they are challenged from a defensive standpoint at center. I like the standpoint of getting up and down. Don't let that defense get set. And you don't want to continue to try to win a game at the free throw line, which we've seen has been pivotal in some of these games.
All last week we asked whether UCF had figured out how to stop Zion, how to stop Duke, because they played him so tight and so close. What was that blueprint they took away that maybe Valtech could take with them?
They did put a blueprint out there how to play Duke, not necessarily Zion, but how to play against Duke. One, you got to let them shoot threes. They played kind of a boxing 2. It was kind of hard to see. When you got 7'5" guy, 7'6" guy, you can't really tell. But like a boxing 2, and they forced other guys on the team to make shots. And that's why Duke struggled, because those other guys wasn't in that position before all season, where they took Zion away and R.J. Barrett for a while before those guys got going. I think that's one way you beat them. And obviously, if they get close to the basket, you got to foul them, put them on the foul line, make them make free throws. And you have to try to see if you can force Zion and R.J. Barrett into foul trouble. Duke only plays 7 guys against UCF. They're not very deep. So if you can get to that bench, you have a legitimate opportunity to beat them too as well.
I like that as far as trying to get to that bench. VTech played them late in the season. Zion wasn't there. So not only are they looking at the UCF video, they're looking at other teams that had some success, not a lot of teams. Pound the ball inside to Duke. Try to make them get into that bench. What if Zion is able to get into foul trouble? I believe those are the models that you have to do to try to beat Duke, and just rely on the 30 games of film that they're not going to be able to hit the three. They're shooting 41% in three-point range. I don't think that's continuous, and it's going to have to not continue if V-Tech's pull off.
I think
that
also
thing.
we got to remember, too, Virginia Tech has beat Duke before. So I think that's a little confidence builder for them going in. Obviously, Zion didn't play, which is huge, but Justin Robinson didn't play either for Virginia, who's one of their better players. That was their point guard. So both teams were missing their stars.
Has Zion already cemented himself as an icon coming out of the college game? Is there something he can do in the tournament a la Carmelo Anthony to really set himself apart from everyone else out there?
Well, I think that the story is still yet to be told as far as who he is in college basketball, that we know that a tournament run can change how people look at things. Steph Curry, great regular season. Kevin Durant, great regular season, but not a great tournament. Steph Curry, great tournament. That's what we remember him scoring all those buckets for Davidson. You mentioned Melo, the great run that he went on. The reason why we don't call Melo that he's not a champion is because we saw that young kid as a freshman put the whole university on his back and be able to get Syracuse through the national championship. So I believe that it's important. And Nick mentioned something, too, and I know for you, you've been successful at every level. Let's not forget how important it is for an athlete to build his resume, to be excellent at all levels. Because now we look back on the tournament, you're talking about triple-doubles. You go back to, oh, man, who's ever done that? Oh, Draymond Green, some of the better pros that we've seen. So I believe it's important. If I'm out there, to play well, and I think Zion thinks the same thing.
Yeah, he wouldn't have never came back. He had the option not to come back, and nobody would have been mad after he got hurt. So for him to come back, he wants to leave a mark, and obviously being in the Sweet 16 is not obviously. It's still a great accomplishment, but I think he wants to get to that Final Four. And
especially they're the favorite.
Yeah, and have an opportunity to play for time. It kind of reminds me, remember Larry Johnson?
Yeah.
That's kind of reminds me of Larry Johnson. When you look at his body type, we haven't seen a guy like that with that body type, athletic ability, but they also was on very good teams. You got to remember, Zion is playing with probably the third pick, the fifth pick. Those, a lot of guys got that. He's not a Melo ways by himself, but he's playing with other good players, too, as well.
Antoine, how did winning the NCAA tournament prepare you for the NBA? Is there something you could pass along to a guy like Zion that maybe winning the whole title, it's enough information that you could actually take with you to the next level?
That's tough. I think the biggest thing you take out of this is it's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you get a chance to play in the Final Four, get a national title, something you can remember for the rest of your life, to be a part of a special group, especially at Duke with so many great players that have played there. You can separate yourself in that conversation.
Yeah, I think that you talk about some of your best friends, and you got guys you play with in the NBA and everything, but the special group, not only going back to high school, but that Kentucky group, when you guys won a title, you say you guys currently still are on a group text.
Yes.
So everyone you play with in college, they're not going on to be all NBA. They're not going on to play in all-star games. So that connective tissue that you develop, I believe that it's very, very important just to have balance in your life. And those friends, they play an important role in this overall development.
It seems like this group is really close. You hear them talk and and then I think when he came back, he set the precedent. It wasn't just about basketball. It's about accomplishing something with these group of guys that they started.
You both think Duke's still going to win, even how they almost threw the scare they had in the last round? You both still on Duke's?
Most of the teams that have won, they have a game like that where they aren't able to play well. I don't believe in this day and age, you hear me all the time, I talk about Ben Simmons, when you struggle shooting the basketball, you bring upset into the picture. The three-point line is the most significant thing in college basketball and pro basketball. That's either shooting it and or defending it. So Duke, being the worst team in the tournament, no, it's on the board that they could lose.
Threes, yeah.
You got to understand this too. With Zion and with this group, they came in with a goal, and that was to win it all. You could tell this is a different group of freshmen, a different group of guys. And when he came back, I was like, I know they're trying to do something special.
All right, good stuff. Antoine, we'll see you a little bit later. Coming up, will the Cowboys repeat as NFC East champs? Next on First Things First. Back here with Brian Westbrook. We'll get to Ezekiel Elliott in a bit, but first, Sixers and Nets. Joel Embiid throwing the lob up to Ben Simmons. Hey, look, Ben Simmons got some points, CC.
Oh, yeah, but look at that little white line under the bucket. That's what he specializes in, getting close to the hoop, B.
Get off my Sixers, man. Come on, Sixers. We need this.
I like the Sixers. I just want Ben to extend his range by at least 6 inches.
Sixers and sisters.
I just want him to extend his range.
Kings and Pelicans. De'Aaron Fox drops a dime to Willie Cauley-Stein before he throws it down on Jahlil Okafor.
The Sacramento's had a good year. They were trying to make that push for that last playoff spot. Going to come up a little bit short, but a lot of good things to build on.
Right in his range as well.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, he ain't been on the highlight reel in a couple years.
Under the bucket.
Bucks and Clippers. Giannis running down Landry Shamet to block the layup.
Is he defensive player of the year also? This is like Bill Russell. You don't want to block it and send it into the front row. No. Keep it in play.
It's rare that you see someone so offensively inclined, but then comes on the defensive end of the floor, plays good defense as well.
Honestly. All right, Nuggets and Rockets. Jamal Murray drives to the hoop, loses his dribble, makes the one-handed acrobatic shot just like it was drawn up.
Jenna, you know where he's from? North of the border.
A little Canadian?
Canadian kid. Went to Big Blue Nation to play basketball. Got Big Blue playing tonight. Jamal Murray, really one of the young guys, up-and-coming guys for the Nuggets. If the Nuggets going to be one of the top teams in the West, he doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's really upped his game.
Got a little Jordan flip right there.
Oh, that was the...
You see that?
Nice pick up there, B.
Well, NC2A Sweet 16.
I normally don't get too many Jordan references on this show. I got a guy consumed by LeBron.
Texas Tech beats Michigan, helped in part by Tariq Owen-Skine for a twisted alley-oop.
Man, we've seen some great athletic plays. Pick and roll is more in the college game now after seeing the success in the NBA. Texas Tech, what defense they played last night.
Get it to the rim. That's all you got to do with these kids these days. Just throw it near the rim, and they'll go get it.
When was the last time you dunked, bro?
Oh, it's been a while. 96.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Time to play drawing a blank, see. The Raiders made one of the biggest splashes of the offseason by acquiring 7-time Pro Bowler Antonio Brown. They also brought in Trent Brown and LaMarcus Joyner. So, Chris, the team whose offseason moves impressed you the most is blank.
A team in Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns. Not only people will be consumed with Odell Beckham, him coming there, but no, he's only part of the story. I believe he will have the best year of his career. He's got his partner, Landry, there, his buddy from high school. He's also got his wide receiver coach from the Giants and from LSU there. But Olivier Vernon on that defensive side, Sheldon Richardson on that defensive side. I believe that their defense will be a top 5 defense. Cleveland Browns, best offseason.
I got to look straight at the Oakland Raiders. You talk about Antonio Brown, one of the best receivers in the game. You love that addition. The biggest problem that they had was protecting the quarterback last year. They add a left tackle, Trent Brown. They solidify their offensive line. Then you bring in some attitude. Vontaze Burfict. You're bringing some attitude, some know-how.
Yeah,
we're going to get it done. And then I think quietly, this is a quiet signing, Tyrell Williams on the other side of Antonio Brown, 6'4" receiver, speedster.
Coming on from the Chargers. Okay, I like it.
That's a big pickup for that offense.
All right, moving on. Yesterday, the Cowboys picked up defensive end Robert Quinn from the Dolphins, and the Eagles traded for running back Jordan Howard. So, Brian, the favorites in the NFC East next season should be blank.
I have to go with my Birds. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? You got to go with my Birds. But here's the reason. Carson Wentz is healthy now. When he was healthy, he was a 30-touchdown-plus type of quarterback. They add some insurance on the outside with Deshaun Jackson. They shore up that defensive line with Malik Jackson. And then you add Jordan Howard as another running back to add to the stable. I think offensively, this team can continue to get it done. Defensively, they still need to battle some depth issues. They have to shore up the defensive line.
Yeah, I still have some Bird blood that ran through my veins when I played there with the Eagles. I do believe that they're the best. I believe that Doug Peterson will rebound after not having that Super Bowl offseason that's very, very hectic. I believe their offensive line will be better, but their ability to be physical like they were 2 years ago when they had a couple running backs they could bang it up in there with, I believe that's critical. I believe that leads to the play-action pass, the best that's ever done it.
Yeah.
No football player in the history of this game, this is our 100th season, has more 60-yard touchdowns than Deshaun Jackson. I believe that running attack leads to play action. Birds get it done in the East.
Nice. All right. So the Cleveland Browns were able to land Odell Beckham this summer, giving them one of the most potent offenses in the league. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh said that the Browns have the most talent in the AFC North. That's high praise. So, see, the best team in the AFC North is blank.
I'm believing everything Coach Harbaugh is saying. Not only are they the best most talented team, but they're the most exciting. Look at what they did in the head-to-head battle last year against Pittsburgh and against Baltimore. That's why Harbaugh's saying that. He's not just trying to buy into the off-season hype. He realized we faced this team. They got good big people. Offensive line, underrated. Myles Garrett on the outside. He's a problem. With all the other additions, yes. Freddie Kitchens, these Browns, man, are the best team in the North.
Yeah, I certainly agree with the Browns. You're talking about talent. You see it on the outside. You see it in the running back game. You get Kareem Hunt back 8 games in the season. This, to me, was the biggest thing that they did last year. At the end of that season, they could have folded up the tent and went home and just not played any good quality football.
Yes.
They continue to fight under Baker Mayfield, Freddie Kitchens, and that coaching staff. They continue to go out there and compete every single game. It's a mindset change, and they added talent to that football team, a different team up there in Cleveland.
All right, at the start of the 2019 season, 8 teams will have new head coaches making their debuts. Most of the new coaches have offensive backgrounds, keeping up with the trend that's skewed to that side of the ball. Brian, the new head coach that you are most excited about this season is blank.
I think Bruce Arians. You talk about he's bringing back the hat. He's down there in Tampa. Tampa Bay, they had a bunch of success last year. Big receiver Mike Evans. They had Deshaun Jackson, who's not going to be there. But they had success throwing the ball deep down the field. Jameis Winston needs that help. He needs a quarterback whisperer that can say, listen, this is what you need to get done. Find the open receiver. Don't be afraid to take some shots down the field. You can be successful that way. Bruce Arians, he's had experience in the NFL. Guys, players on that team have to respect him. I think he'll be the best and most excited. I'm the most excited about him.
Yeah, I think most of these coaches are going to struggle. I think I could lean a little bit towards a couple coaches, but it still goes back to Cleveland. He's the coach that got the most talent.
Yep.
He's also the coach that got some experience last year with the same talent in Freddie Kitchens. Them 8 games that he had Baker Mayfield, and they started running the ball, they started knocking people off. So I believe that gives him a head start on these other coaches. I believe Adam Gase is going to be interesting to watch here in New York City, but the most talented and who has the best opportunity to be successful early, Freddie Kitchens got it going on. An old Roll Tide quarterback from Alabama. Man, they say he's tougher than a $2 steak down south. Freddie Kitchens is going to get it done. No attitude problems in that locker room, Jenna. I know you're thinking, oh, man, that little
no,
kid
what
with
I'm
the gold
thinking
hair.
about was a steak that's only $2. That seems really affordable and economically nutritious.
Yeah, it's just more of a saying. I can't actually say there is
tough on your body.
Back in 2007, Brian, you accounted for 2,100 yards from scrimmage and 12 touchdowns, so you might know a little something about running backs. Brian, the best running back in the NFL right now is blank.
Second-year player, Saquon Barkley. And it's simple. He carried the football team last year. He's going to get over, close to 400 carries this year, touches this year. He can do it all. Inside the tackle, outside the tackle, great lateral movement, great speed to the edge. He has breakaway speed. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. I think this offense will continue to lean on him. That way he'll get the opportunities to put up numbers, continue success for him.
Yeah, I know Nick's not used to this, but I'm not going to argue with the guy, especially who ran the ball in the league. It seems like his experience would lead to some type of expertise. I like Barkley. He's amazing. But the best running back is Ezekiel Elliott with the Dallas Cowboys. He can bang it inside the tackles. He's been proven since he's been in the league that he's been healthy. We see that he's getting better and better out of the backfield, evolving. Last year on screen passes, man, he was amazing. So Ezekiel Elliott, if I need one guy to be able to carry the ball, he's going to carry it 15 to 20 times, I'm going to give it to Zeke because I think he's the best pure runner that we have in the NFL.
I love Zeke, and you can't take anything away from him. I think last year he got quicker, a little bit more explosive.
Okay.
Just because I think he changed his weight just a little bit. But when you look at Saquon, and here I'll make the argument for Saquon. He is a little bit more explosive than Zeke. Not much, but he's a little bit more explosive. He does some things that you haven't seen at the running back's position.
Yeah,
in a
especially
very
for
long
that
time.
size.
No question.
No one talks about Le'Veon Bell. No one's excited to see him this year?
I'm excited to see him. Listen, I appreciate good running back play. Le'Veon does it on a different level, especially when he was in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Run and pass. I just want to see how that year off comes back with his body.
Yeah, I saw last year in the offseason, though, regardless of he said he didn't get on the scale, he wasn't 230.
He was big.
He wasn't at no fight weight. Yes, sir. He had ballooned up, looked like somebody had sealed his lips and something put a straw in him, blew his cheeks up like that. So he'll get that weight off. I believe he will have a great year, and he will be back in the conversation. But we need to see him on the field.
Right.
Different world for Le'Veon. He doesn't have Antonio Brown outside,
Oh,
and he
yeah.
also doesn't have Ben throwing on football.
Yeah, but he is rich.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, And catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.